Hello humans, hello humans. Hang on a second. Stick around. Yeah. No, leave that alone. Out here with the dog. Taking some sun and wanted to discuss the complexity of where we're at. We live in a world that is a system of systems. The systems themselves are quite complex. A lot of this complexity has always been there, and it's just been an issue of our view. We couldn't see it, right? We didn't understand. We had a paradigm, or a paradigm really, of simplicity being the order of the day. Simplicity is inherent in the grit model of philosophy here, right? Of the grit approach to universe, that somehow without life, without consciousness existing, grit would exist, even if there was no life or consciousness to see it, okay? And this doesn't mean just humans, it means like any life, any consciousness. And so that's a fallacy. We don't have that simplistic level of universe where grit just simply bumps into other grit and they stick together and become a more complex grit. It does not work that way. So we live in a complex universe, a complex materium. It's so complex, the materium is inside a universe, and so on, right? But the point being that you don't see the complexity unless you know that complexity exists and to look for it. And the model you choose can blind you to stuff. So, what's his name? Brian Keating. He's a physicist. Came that close to winning a Nobel Prize, which is like, yeah, that's fine, dude. Anyway, but he's always saying, oh no, you've got to start from, the rationalist approach. This came about as part of the liberal education stuff that was evolving in the 1690s as part of all of us coming out of Kali Yuga. So note that all of that shit started in 1699. And we were out of the Kali Yuga in 1698. All that stuff started in 1699. We were out of the Kali Yuga. And liberalism, or liberal arts education, was born, right? And started coming up from there. All different kinds of things that emerge, new inventions and so on. Anyway, so complexity exists inherently within the ontological model of universe. Hang on a second. Okay. I'm out here struggling to see with against the sun if this thing is actually recording again. Hang on a second. Let's see here. Okay, I think we're recording. Yeah, okay. All right, so the grit model is of physics is inherently the simple model, right? Ontological is inherently complex. Ontological is so complex that many people can't wrap their heads around any aspect of it and can't see how you could use science to investigate an ontological model. It's that complex, so they don't. They prefer the grit-only model, like this Brian Keating fellow. He's a podcaster in the physics realm. He interviews some decent people, and he always comes right up to the edge of the space alien issue and then backs off because he's Elohim worship cultist. Anyway, so our world is so complex that any aspect of it you examine, you can get into some serious complexity. We are right now struggling as humanity with our Elohim problem. This affects us in so many ways. So we have right now Alex Jones and Naomi Wolf attempting to shift the narrative to try, basically, I think, to take the pressure off the Jews, right? They're trying to shift the narrative, um, dis or non-corporeal, disincarnate evil, right? So the devil, right? And then that's not going to wash, right? This was an instance of evil that has human hands all over it. So we have to deal with that. We have to deal with the fact that even if you acknowledge and accept an in or a disincarnated evil, that disincarnated evil still needed human hands to do this terrible thing to humanity. It's not going to do it on its own. So human hands are involved. What's going to happen, though, what part of our complexity issue relative to religion and all this other shit is where we're going to be at in just a few short weeks. And in a few short weeks, we're going to have emerged into the developing consensus which is going to cause some real issues. There are going to be people that will start compiling lists of all of the Jewish people in Big Pharma. They'll compile lists of all of the Jewish people that are in government, likely genetically inferior products, aka mutants, and stillbirths and all kinds of deformities and this kind of thing, right? What was that stuff? They had a bunch of births in the 60s of deformed kids as a result of chemicals that were given to women during pregnancy, and the thalidomide babies. There you go. And this could be much worse than that. Actually, it'll be less worse than that because not so many people are going to survive this to have fertility actually express itself in them. So this could be hugely impacting on the social order. Some of the old data sets are back in the Alta report days are manifesting now. We're in the process of those things manifesting. This manifestation is showing up as the organization of the resurgence of reality, I guess you'd say, as we move into the age of Aquarius here. And the impact for humans, for all of us guys, is that we're coming up to a period of choices, right? Challenges and choices. We have to deal with our own emotions after being assaulted by the Elohim worship cult. This is going to affect Jews more than anyone else, okay? We're all going to hate the Elohim worship cult. We're going to hate them fiercely for what they've done. Rabbis' houses will be looted. It's going to get that bad because rabbis will be isolated off into the Pharisees as we come to this greater understanding of the complexity of what's been done to us by the Elohim worship cult. This does not require the Elohim to make a reappearance. It doesn't even require us to acknowledge what's going on our moon, right? And I say our moon just because it's attached to the Earth temporarily. Those will come out. We will see evidence of the activity on the moon being discussed, and we'll see evidence of the Elohim being discussed this summer. And they'll discuss the Elohim in a pretty factual way. You'll also have the bullshit artists, the Vatican, and those people out there discussing it too and trying to obscure all of this stuff. But everyone will start to recognize the Vatican is just an extension of the Elohim worship cult. And this is going to hit the big mega churches here in the United States very hard. It's going to hit the Zionist Christian community really hard. So there's going to be huge battles within the Zionist Christian community over the importance of our situation now relative to understanding the Elohim as corporeal beings and not some another word for God, okay? and what they've done to us and how these beings created Judaism and so on. Basically, it's going to come down to this. Over perhaps the next 50 years, I don't know how brief this will be, nor how violent. The more violent it is, the briefer it's going to be. Um, we've got to deal with the Pharisees. We've got to deal with their worshiping these space aliens and taking instructions and stuff from these space aliens. Here is our problem with the Elohim themselves. The Elohim themselves are mentally ill from their long lives within their force field bubbles that just keeps them in a steady hum, right? This is not a natural way to exist. They used or their native natural biological lifespan may be as much as 3,000 years. And they degrade even in that 3,000 years into a mental morass in like the last third of their lives. Uh, Technology, these force fields, and within these force fields, they can live perhaps 20 or 30,000 years, but it does not eliminate the long-lived disease. It merely shunts it out further into their future, right? The more time they are subjected to real time, so to speak, the more duration of real time they have, the less they live, as with all of us. And, I mean, the less long their lifespan ahead of them is. And in this case, anyway, so we're going to get into all of this stuff with the Elohim. And the Elohim themselves, because they are so long-lived, they have a tendency, these guys are gamers, okay? They're addicted to gaming as well as all their other addictions. In their gaming, that just basically is how to manipulate organizations and structures. And so they love organizations and structures, and so they've imposed organizations and structures onto tribal humanity. And thus we have civilization. And civilization itself is under attack at the moment because the Elohim are attempting to drastically reduce the size of the herd, meaning all of humanity, such that they can have a tighter level of control with a reduced humanity that is less smart. They want people to be very, very dumb. This is why they want racial inbreeding, okay? It is factual that the average or the mean, the halfway mark on white people is 100 IQ points, right? Whether or not you believe the IQ tests or not, it's immaterial to this particular metric. So white people have 100 as the mean, half or below that, half or above it. Black people, that's 72. Okay, so half of black people are below 72 in IQ and half are above. It gets even worse if you look at exceptionalism within IQ, because within whites, exceptionalism crosses the boundary at about 125. And we've got a significant 25%, 1/4 of white people will be born with exceptional potential for cogitation in the sense that their IQ points will be over 125. Black people, only 5% are going to be born over 100, and only 1% are going to be born over 125. So it's disproportionate. This is just the way that genetics work out. So this is in the favor of the Elohim to get as many white women bred by black men as they possibly can in order to lower the overall general intelligence in the population. People are going to hate on me for saying that, but that's just the way it is. This is reality. If you can't face reality, basically go find one that you can face. Or however, deal with it any way you may. Mostly those people that can't, in my opinion, those people that can't face reality won't make it through the rest of this year. And so on, as a result of the having to come to grips with all of this shit as a result of us crossing into the age of Aquarius or into this 326th year of the Dwapara or Yuga, which is the Bronze Age, right? So we're getting smarter as we go along. Anyway, we now have to face this reality and deal with it. It's going to be rough on all of us. We'll come through. Humanity will get over it. Everything will be better as we go forward, but we're going to be entering into sci-fi world, so we're not going back, okay? Don't expect that we will return to anything that existed in your youth, because that shit that existed in your youth was a delusion that had been placed on your mind such that you would view reality a certain way. That delusion was engineered by the Elohim and put in the hands of the Elohim worship cult such that it could be distributed across the planet. That's the way they work. The Elohim worship cult, though, appears to have lost contact with the Elohim because they're making really dumb moves now, doing really stupid things, okay? And so as a result, errors are compounding on their side, and the Elohim worship cult is floundering, and it's going to be a very energetic 12 or 15 years getting into that aspect of this. You needn't dwell on that aspect of this. It'll take a long time for all of that stuff to sort out at a socio-political level. But you could go and involve yourself with the economic stuff that we have to rebuild, or the science stuff we have to rebuild, etc. So, that being the case, you need to navigate this as best you can, right? It's going to be very dangerous. I have been saying for a long time, and no one's picked up on this, and the time is getting far too short for me to keep on saying this, and I had thought that maybe Naomi would, with my interview with her, would allow us to get into this, and it would provide the opportunity for Jewish people to understand that there is a way out of their conundrum, and it's staring them right in the face. They don't want to see it, and the fact that they've been inculcated by their quote, religion, their Stockholm syndrome, to not be able to see it, even when it's pointed out to them, is a real problem. So in other words, the Elohim are so sophisticated, they're so long-lived, they're such good psychologists. Psychiatry is bullshit, but they're such good psychologists that they can put mental blocks in at a cultural level that will persist for thousands of years, okay? You've lived with one of these mental blocks, which was anti-Semitism, which is now falling away. All these mental blocks are falling away as we get into the further into these energies from galactic center. We're able to, quote, see more, right? Our vision is increasing. All of these various different allusions to the fact that we're getting more energies and our brains are operating at a higher degree of engagement. So all of this is occurring, and we're running into and discovering all of these things that the Elohim have put into humanity by way of the Elohim worship cult. And the complexity of what they've done there is truly staggering, because they've actually blinded the members of the cult to being able to see the cult that they're within. The clues are all over. The clues are actually written in plain sight in the Talmud and many of the different books, and they're even written in the Zohar. Okay, so they lay all this stuff out in the Zohar, and it's labeled as mysticism. It's a Jewish mystic book that's claimed to have been written over the course of centuries by a lot of people, but it was written by this one really whacked out son of a bitch in a relatively short period of time back in the 1600s, as we're all coming out of the Kali Yuga, right? So anyway, the complexity upon, or complication upon complication upon complication, is adding to the problems of the Jew community getting their heads wrapped around the fact that they are indeed victims. They're not victims from other humans, they're victims from their, quote, gods, and they need to really examine that. And in order to save themselves from what is coming, from this giant global backlash, they must, in my opinion, they must heal themselves from the Stockholm syndrome that is Judaism. And they've got to really examine how Judaism, how their religion has been taken over by the Pharisees, by the rabbinical councils, who are all Satanists and are off on this other pathway. These are the bloodlickers. These are some severely demented minds. Captured minds. Anyway, so we're it's going to be a fun year of contention, right? So we're going to see how people react when they've got to contend with all of this internally and externally. And it's we're actually getting into a year of contention, but it's not like from January, it's going to be from July. And so like from summer to summer, we're going to go through a 12-month period of time where the focus is going to be on contention. But contention is bigger than that. And during this period of time, the Elohim are going to come on out. That's going to shock the Zionist Christians to really examining their relationship with Jews. It's going to bust up the rabbinical mafia that controls Judaism, because the Zionist Christians are going to start looking at rabbis as pretty disgusting, foul, non-human beings. And from there, it's going to get worse. So, so whatever kind of chaos we go into in this summer, you're going to be living through it for the next 12 months, probably even longer in many different places, but in the intensity for the next 12 months. It's the year of contention from that point on, right? July to July for all of us guys here in the USA. And remember, when we started off this year, I said the goal was to survive through 25, right? So 24 and 25 are going to be pretty harsh years for the planet and for humanity. After we get through 25, it will ease up considerably and things will take a more positive tone. Anyway, guys, I got to get in, get some coffee, and get some more work done.